A guy built like a 300-pound gym rat once grabbed me by the wrist just to make a show of it, like he wanted everyone at the bar to see what weakness looked like. Then he shoved me into the counter and started telling people I was some kind of creep who couldn't take a hint. I tried to just keep my cool and sip the last of my drink, but he knocked my glasses clean across the bar and laughed. "You look 12, bro. Go back to daycare." I stayed calm. That was 8 days ago. Last night, one of his own friends sent me a clip of him crying in the parking lot after the video of the whole thing blew up online. See, this guy picked a fight with me in front of a girl, trying to puff himself up, not realizing I'm a karate black belt. On paper, though, I don't exactly look intimidating. 5'5", about 150 pounds. Guys who get sloppy drunk at bars always seem to single me out when they want to look tough in front of women. So when I saw this 6'5" musclehead storming over to where I was chatting with a pretty brunette, I already knew the script. He shoved himself between us, his bulk blocking me out completely, like I wasn't even there. Didn't so much as glance at me, just turned his wide back my way like I was a piece of furniture. "Let me buy you a real drink. Beautiful," he said, waving the bartender down. "Not whatever this little guy's been boring you with." The girl leaned to peek around him, her eyes finding mine, and I could tell she was uncomfortable. She tried to speak up, but he cut her off with, "Trust me," and slapped a hand on the bar in front of her like he was building a wall. "You need a man who can actually take care of you." Without asking, he ordered her a martini, then finally looked at me like I existed, just long enough to dismiss me with a smirk. "You can go now, buddy." When I didn't move, he leaned his weight into me, using his size to nudge me farther down the bar until the counter dug into my ribs. I still didn't budge, just kept drinking my beer like nothing was happening. By then, he expected I'd have already scurried off. Instead, he turned to face me full on, giving me this exaggerated up and down look like I was something he found under his shoe. "What, you deaf or something?" he sneered. I kept my voice even and told him I was just finishing my drink. That's when his hand shot out and slapped my glasses right off my face. They skittered across the bar, leaving my vision a blur. He cracked jokes about how I couldn't see high enough to look him in the eye, and told the girl maybe that's why I hadn't taken the hint. Still, I didn't react. 12 years of martial arts drilled the same rule into me over and over. Real fighters don't throw down in bars. Too much liability, too much at stake. I could lose my instructor license, my gym, maybe face a lawsuit, all because of one drunk idiot. So I reached for my glasses with slow, careful movements. He flicked them farther away with his finger and told me to leave them. I kept it neutral, walked around him to pick them up, and sat back down without a word. That's when he spun around, puffed up his chest, and shouted to the entire bar that we had a creeper situation. His voice cut through the music, loud enough for everyone to hear, while he pointed at me with his beer bottle and claimed I'd been pestering this nice lady for an hour. The brunette tried to speak up for me, but he cut her off again, this time laying a possessive hand on her shoulder that made her flinch. He told everyone not to worry, that he had things under control. His buddies at a corner table started laughing and hooting. One of them even yelled out, asking if I was in middle school. He smirked and told the bartender I should be carded again, saying I looked about 13. The brunette tried to pull away from his hand, but he kept talking over her, telling her she didn't need to be polite anymore. By then, half the bar was watching, people whispering and giving me suspicious looks. 2 years I'd been a regular there, and my reputation was being shredded in front of everyone. Then he went for the physical show. He grabbed my wrist out of nowhere, holding it up for the bar to see while comparing it to his 13-year-old nephew's arm. I stayed calm, breathing steady, even as he squeezed harder with his thumb pressed right on the pressure point. He yanked me off the stool with no effort, spun me around like I was a prop, then shoved me back into the bar. Not quite assault, but enough to make his point. The edge dug into my spine. He waited, daring me to push back, telling me to prove I was a man. I kept my stance neutral, hands at my sides, nothing aggressive he could use as an excuse. My calm only made him angrier. He called me pathetic, then turned to the girl and said this was why she needed someone like him. He painted a whole picture of danger, saying if he'd been serious, I wouldn't have done a thing. The brunette had enough and stood up, saying she was leaving. He grabbed her wrist right away, insisting he'd walk her out because the streets weren't safe. Her voice was steady, but I heard the fear when she told him to let go. He tightened his grip slightly, still smiling, saying he was just trying to help. She tried pulling back, but he wouldn't release her, telling her to relax, that he was being a gentleman. His grip only got tighter, enough to make her gasp. Her fear was real now, panic in her voice as she pushed against his chest. That's when his expression shifted. The drunk bravado turned mean. He yanked her against him with force, brushing off her protests as dramatic. She cried out, twisting to get free, but he caught her other wrist too, holding both while locking eyes with me. With this cruel grin, he said, "This is what happens when weak little boys can't protect anyone." That's when I moved. I broke his grip with a simple redirection and freed her. "Walk away," I told him. He shoved me hard. I let the push carry me back, but didn't go down. The brunette scrambled behind the bar. The bartender was already on the phone, likely calling security. He came charging like a bull, throwing a wild haymaker. I slipped left, and his fist cut through air. He stumbled forward, spun, and swung again. I ducked under, pivoted behind him. He spun once more, throwing punch after punch, each missing by inches as I slipped and redirected. His breathing grew heavy. Sweat soaked through his tank top. A crowd had formed around us, recording everything. He was worn out, confused, yelling at me to stop dancing and fight. Then the security guard appeared through the circle, hand already on his radio. The gym bro instantly switched gears, raising his hands and backing off, suddenly the picture of innocence. He started explaining to the guard how I'd supposedly been harassing the young lady, that he'd only been trying to help. His buddies from the corner table jumped in, backing up his story. The brunette came out from behind the bar, voice shaking, and told security what really happened. His face darkened when she described how he'd grabbed her wrists. He cut her off, claiming she was confused or maybe had too much to drink. The guard looked between us, trying to figure out the truth. I stayed silent, letting her speak. The bartender confirmed her account, saying he'd seen everything. A few other regulars spoke up too, people who'd known me for years and never seen trouble. Slowly, the gym bro's story started collapsing. His friends got quieter with every witness. Security finally escorted him and his buddies out. He shot me a look over his shoulder, a promise that this wasn't over. The brunette thanked me, hands still trembling. I made sure she got to her car safely, then headed home myself, thinking that would be the end of it. Next morning, I opened my gym at 5:30 a.m., like always. By 6 o'clock, my regular morning class was warming up when I heard the front door slam. Stone sober now, the gym bro walked in, jaw set, looking like he'd found me. My business name had been on my shirt at the bar, easy to Google. He demanded a real fight. No witnesses this time, except my students. When I told him to leave, he started his campaign instead. First, he signed up for a month-to-month membership, filling out the paperwork with exaggerated politeness. I couldn't legally refuse him without cause. Then he began showing up to every single class, sitting silently in the back. He never participated, just watched, making my students uncomfortable with his size and the way he stared at me through the entire session. Some longtime students started asking questions. A few newer ones stopped coming. Parents dropping off kids for youth classes noticed him lurking and hesitated. My afternoon classes shrank from 16 kids to 9, then 6. He was smart, never threatening, never aggressive. Just showing up, paying his membership, and watching. When I confronted him, he'd smile and claim he just wanted to learn, maybe take private lessons. The mockery in his voice was clear, but there was nothing I could legally do. Piece by piece, he was invading my peaceful life. One evening, I was having dinner with my girlfriend, Emily, at our usual spot when he walked in, with a date. They sat where we could see them perfectly. The whole meal, he stared at our table, occasionally leaning over to whisper something to his date, making her glance our way and giggle. Emily noticed right away and asked who he was, why he kept looking. I tried to brush it off, not wanting to worry her, but she could see the tension in my shoulders. When we left, he followed us out, calling after me that it was good to see me again, asking if I'd introduce him to my girlfriend. Emily gripped my hand tighter, picking up the pace to the car. That night, she asked me what was really going on. The next day, he found my social media. He started commenting on old photos, not overtly threatening, just enough to let me know he was digging into my life. Liking pictures from years ago, family photos, friends, documenting every connection I had. The comments were subtle, nice form on training videos, beautiful couple on photos with Emily. My phone buzzed constantly, his notifications spaced out like clockwork. 0 to stalker in record time. I'd be teaching a class, feel my phone vibrate, knowing it was him, and had to wait to check it. The psychological pressure was exactly what he wanted. My students noticed my distraction, my edge. Emily started getting friend requests from accounts with no profile pictures. The messages were polite, friendly enough, asking about her work, saying they were friends of mine. She showed them to me, worried. Every word carefully written, nothing actionable, but we both knew who was behind it. Her comfort in her daily routine was being chipped away. I thought about going to the police, but what would I say? Some guy is attending my public business and liking public photos. They'd tell me to block him and move on. He hadn't made threats, hadn't touched anyone since that night at the bar. He was playing a long game, and he was winning. My business took a hit week by week. Somehow word got around that there was drama at my gym. In a small community, reputation is everything. Parents pulled their kids, adult students found excuses to skip, which I knew would be permanent. My morning class went from 14 to 5 loyal students who'd been with me since the start. What had been a place of discipline and respect was turning into a circus. The gym bro had found the perfect way to destroy everything I'd built, without ever throwing a punch. Then, one afternoon, Emily and I were at the grocery store when he appeared at the end of our aisle, card in hand. He made a show of recognizing us, insisting on introducing himself to Emily properly. She stayed close behind me as he extended his hand, that fake, friendly smile plastered on his face. When she didn't take it, he laughed and jabbed, saying I must be teaching her to be unfriendly too. He followed us through the store, always keeping his distance just enough to be noticed, always appearing in the next aisle with that same grin. Emily's hands shook as she tried to shop like normal. At the checkout, he got in line right behind us, close enough to smell his cologne, chatting with the cashier about how nice it was to run into friends while shopping. That night, Emily broke down. She said she couldn't handle the constant feeling of being watched, the anxiety of wondering when he'd show up next. She wanted me to do something, anything, to make it stop. But what could I do without playing right into his hands? He wanted me to lose control, to attack, to give him the fight he never got at the bar. I started documenting everything. Every appearance, every social media interaction, every time he showed up at the gym. I built a paper trail in case it was ever needed, but documenting felt passive while he was actively dismantling my life. My income had dropped by 70%. Emily considered staying with her sister for a while. 3 weeks into his campaign, I arrived at the gym to find graffiti on the front window. Nothing that directly tied to him, just crude drawings and profanity. Security footage showed figures in hoodies, faces obscured. The police took a report, said they'd increase patrols, but we all knew it wouldn't amount to much. Cleaning it up cost more, cutting further into my strained budget. The next morning, flyers appeared around the neighborhood. They advertised a new MMA gym opening soon, with bold text screaming, "Real fighting, not dancing. Learn what actually works." The contact number led to a voicemail that was clearly his voice. He used a fake name, but the message was clear. He was escalating, trying to destroy not just my peace, but my livelihood. My remaining students were loyal, but I could see the strain on them too. They'd signed up to learn martial arts in a respectful environment, not be caught in the middle of some personal vendetta. 2 more gave notice they'd be taking a break. I understood. I would have done the same. The sanctuary I'd built was gone. Emily moved in with her sister temporarily, saying she needed space to think. I couldn't blame her. The psychological warfare was working exactly as he planned. He was isolating me, cutting off my support system one by one, all without crossing any line that would allow real consequences. I knew I had to make a choice soon. Either find a way to end this without violence or watch everything I'd built crumble completely. But he was careful, calculating. Every move designed to provoke, while staying just inside legal boundaries. I needed to be smarter. I had to find a way to turn his own tactics against him. The question was how. Before I lost everything that mattered, I spent the next few nights barely sleeping, running through every scenario in my head. My old instructor's lessons kept echoing. The best victory is one where your opponent defeats themselves. But applying that philosophy to real-world harassment was harder than any tournament I'd ever faced. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. One of my 5 remaining morning students, Stacy, came up to me after class. She worked in social media communications manager and had noticed the fake accounts targeting Emily. She offered to help trace them, explaining how metadata and posting patterns could reveal connections. Within hours, she linked the accounts to the Gym Bros' real profile. Her findings sparked an idea. If he wanted to play games with documentation and social media, I could play too. I started recording every class session, telling my students it was for instructional purposes. The cameras captured not just training, but also him sitting in the back, his friends making comments, the uncomfortable atmosphere they created. I edited the footage carefully, creating training videos that just happened to show the disruptions in the background, and posted them on the gym's social media with captions about staying focused despite distractions. My students shared the videos, adding their own comments about the hostile environment. Parents who'd pulled their kids started asking questions. The gym bro noticed the videos within days. His response was predictable: more friends showing up, louder comments, more obvious disruption. But now it was all being recorded. Every mocking gesture, every snide remark, every act of intimidation captured in high definition. He didn't realize he was building my case for me. Meanwhile, I studied his patterns. He had a routine too. Mornings at the gym, protein shakes at the same shop, lunch at the sports bar with his buddies. I didn't need to follow him. Social media broadcasted everything. I reached out to the brunette from the bar through the bartender. She was willing to help, still shaken by that night. She'd saved screenshots of messages he'd sent afterward, alternating between apologies and accusations. She'd also spoken to other women who'd had similar encounters. A pattern was emerging. This went beyond me. Then one night, Emily called me, crying. Someone had slashed her tires at her sister's apartment complex. No cameras, no witnesses. She was scared and wanted to move back to her parents. I couldn't blame her, but losing her felt like handing him another victory. I convinced her to give me one more week. The next morning, I arrived at the gym to find the lock glued shut. The locksmith cost me $300 and 4 hours of canceled classes. Inside, someone had spread protein powder across the mats, not enough to be obvious vandalism, but enough to require professional cleaning. That afternoon, my landlord called. He'd received complaints about noise and disruptions from my business. I knew my options were running out, but I also knew something the gym bro didn't. I'd been building more than a paper trail. Stacy had connected me with other business owners who'd dealt with him before. The cafe shop owner remembered him from a harassment campaign against a competitor. The sports bar manager had stories about fights he'd started, but always managed to pin on someone else. We formed an informal network, sharing experiences and details. The picture was clear. This wasn't his first campaign. He'd done it before, always careful to stay just inside legal limits. Always picking targets he thought couldn't fight back. But he'd never faced coordinated resistance. Phase 2 of my plan began. Instead of avoiding his spots, I started showing up at the sports bar during lunch, not to confront him, just to be visible. I'd sit at the bar, order food, chat with the staff. His friends whispered and pointed, but I acted oblivious. The manager, aware of the situation, kept an eye on things. He tried to escalate there too. One day, he approached my table with his whole crew, surrounding me while I ate, making comments about my food, my size, my martial arts. But I just kept eating, occasionally nodding as if we were having a friendly chat. Other patrons started noticing the one-sided nature of it all. The breakthrough came when one of his slightly smarter friends pulled him aside. I couldn't hear them, but I saw gestures toward the security cameras, worried looks. They left soon after, though he accidentally knocked over my water glass. The manager comped my meal and confirmed the footage was saved. My morning classes began to recover. 2 former students returned, saying they'd seen the videos and finally understood what was happening. Parents who'd pulled their kids started asking about re-enrollment. The gym bro responded by increasing his presence, but now it was backfiring. The more he showed up, the more evidence we collected. Stacy discovered something important. He worked at a high-end fitness club, one that prided itself on professionalism and conduct. Their social media featured him prominently as a trainer. She suggested we document how their employee spent his mornings. I hesitated at first, but then Emily called again. Someone had made a fake dating profile, using her photos and her sister's address. The messages were increasingly disturbing. That crossed a line I couldn't ignore. We compiled everything: the gym videos, witness statements from the bar, the harassment documentation, the fake social media accounts. Stacy helped me put together a professional presentation, sticking to facts and avoiding accusations. I sent it to the fitness club's management with a simple note explaining the situation. Their response was immediate. That evening, the gym bro showed up at my door, pounding and yelling. I didn't answer, just recorded through the window as he screamed about getting me fired, ruining his life, and how I'd regret this. My neighbor called the police. He left before they arrived, but the damage was done. He'd finally lost control in a way that mattered. His workplace suspended him pending investigation. Without that job, he couldn't keep paying for day passes to harass my classes. But he wasn't finished yet. The fake profiles targeting Emily increased. Late-night calls came to my gym, even pizza deliveries I hadn't ordered. Classic harassment, growing more desperate. I kept documenting everything, teaching my classes, and rebuilding. My students rallied, sharing the truth. The community that he'd tried to turn against me began to see what was really happening. Local martial arts schools reached out, offering solidarity, hosting displaced students, sharing stories of their own encounters with troublemakers. The fitness club finished their investigation. Multiple female members had complained over the years, complaints that had been ignored or minimized. My documentation was the final straw. They terminated him and banned him from their facilities. Word spread fast in the fitness community. He showed up at my gym one last time during an evening class, this time not alone. He brought what looked like a lawyer, an older man in a suit, who handed me an envelope. Inside was a cease and desist accusing me of defamation and harassment. The irony wasn't lost on me. I passed it to my own lawyer, a friend from my morning class who had followed the saga from the start. She laughed at the letter, pointing out all the flaws and baseless claims. She drafted a response outlining the harassment, the witnesses, the evidence, and even the criminal complaints that could be filed if he continued. Within days, the fake profiles stopped. The calls ceased. His friends no longer showed up at my gym, but I knew he was still out there, angry, watching, waiting for a chance. I kept the security cameras running, updated my documentation, and stayed alert. Emily slowly started coming back around. She'd seen how I handled everything without violence, using patience and intelligence instead of fists. She moved back from her sister's place, installing new locks and a security system. We both knew this had changed us, made us cautious, but stronger. My gym began to thrive again. The students who'd stuck by me became my most dedicated practitioners. New students joined, drawn by the story of an instructor who lived his principles, even under pressure. Parents appreciated the security measures and the focus on real-world application of discipline. I learned the gym bro had moved to another city, supposedly for a fresh start. But Stacy kept tabs on social media, watching for familiar patterns. Sure enough, within months, similar stories started surfacing from his new location. Another gym owner reached out after hearing about our situation. I shared our documentation and strategies. The network we'd built began to grow. Business owners, especially women, started exchanging resources for handling harassment. We created a private group where people could seek advice and support. What had started as one man's vendetta had inadvertently sparked a community response to a much larger problem. Few months after that night at the bar, I ran into the brunette again. She thanked me, not just for that night, but for following through. She'd been inspired to take self-defense classes. She'd also started sharing her story, warning other women about aggressive men who refused to take no for an answer. My relationship with Emily grew stronger through all of this. We'd survived something that could have broken many couples. She'd seen me at my most frustrated and vulnerable, but also at my most determined. She started taking classes at my gym, not to fight, but to understand the discipline that had kept me centered. The experience changed the way I taught too. I incorporated more situational awareness training, focusing on real-world applications beyond physical confrontation. My students learned not just how to throw a punch, but how to document threats, build support networks, and rely on intelligence over aggression. The informal network of his previous targets had expanded into a detailed database. Screenshots, videos, witness statements from dozens of people across 3 cities. Stacy even found a pattern in his employment history, a trail of gyms and fitness centers he'd left under suspicious circumstances. I made a decision that went against every instinct my training had given me. Instead of avoiding confrontation, I would set the stage for him to destroy himself. We announced a women's self-defense workshop, knowing he wouldn't resist the chance to disrupt it. On the night of the workshop, I stationed Stacy and several others from our network in strategic positions. The coffee shop across the street, the parking garage next door, sitting in cars with clear sight lines to the gym entrance. Everyone had cameras ready, knowing we needed indisputable documentation. He showed up exactly when expected, during the initial gathering when participants would be most vulnerable. But he'd learned subtlety. Instead of barging in, he arrived quietly with two new accomplices I didn't recognize, all three dressed in workout clothes as if they belonged. They spread out, blocking exits while maintaining plausible deniability. I continued the workshop introduction, explaining basic awareness concepts, all the while monitoring their movements carefully. The women in attendance, actually martial artists from allied schools who'd volunteered, played their roles as nervous beginners flawlessly. His confidence grew as he saw what looked like easy targets. The disruption started small. One of his friends began doing exaggerated stretches in the corner, grunting loudly. Another started shadowboxing near the entrance, throwing combinations that forced people to dodge. The gym bro himself approached the demonstration area, claiming he wanted to help show realistic attack scenarios. I declined politely, maintaining my instructor persona. He persisted, moving closer, using his size to create pressure. His friends flanked the group, their positioning now clearly coordinated. Several of the beginners pulled out phones, seemingly nervous, but actually capturing every angle. He reached for one of the volunteer victims to demonstrate a grab technique, ignoring my clear instruction to stop. That's when the trap snapped shut. The woman he grabbed was a national-level judo black belt. His wrist control attempt turned instantly into a reversal that sent him stumbling backward. His friends rushed forward, but the other beginners responded with trained precision. No one struck or caused injury. They simply used defensive movements to maintain space and control positions. The entire encounter was being live-streamed to our private network, creating undeniable evidence of coordinated aggression against a women's self-defense class. The gym bro's face went through a series of emotions as he realized the setup: rage, embarrassment, calculation, and finally, desperate aggression. He charged at me directly, no longer caring about subtlety or plausible deniability. I used simple footwork to maintain distance while he chased me around the mat, his friends trying to corner me. Stacy had already called the police from her position, reporting an active disruption at a women's safety workshop. Other network members called from different locations, creating multiple reports demanding immediate response. The entire chase was being recorded from multiple angles, showing clear aggressor-victim dynamics. When he finally cornered me against the wall, breathing hard and raising his fist, I didn't need to defend myself. The sirens were already audible, growing louder. His friends heard them too, backing toward the exit. Stacy had thought of that. Network members outside documented their license plates and faces as they fled. The gym bro made his final mistake. He grabbed my shirt and pulled back for a punch just as the first officer arrived. No ambiguity, no question of who was the aggressor. The officer's command to stop rang through the gym. He released me immediately, trying to switch back to his innocent act, but it was too late. The arrest was clean, witnessed by multiple officers and documented by countless cameras. As they let him out, he tried to claim it had all been a misunderstanding, that I'd set him up. The officers took statements from everyone present and reviewed footage that clearly showed the sequence of events. The students revealed their true credentials only when asked, explaining that they'd volunteered for a safety demonstration. The next morning, Stacy published everything, not to news outlets or viral platforms, but to a carefully curated network of fitness professionals, gym owners, and martial arts instructors. The package included his full history of harassment across multiple cities, witness statements from dozens of victims, and the previous night's footage showing unmistakable predatory behavior at a women's safety event. Within days, he was banned from every reputable gym within a 200-mile radius. The budget chain that had employed him launched its own investigation after seeing our documentation. Former employees came forward with their stories. His employment ended within a week, this time with no references and a reputation that followed him wherever he went in the fitness industry. My gym recovered. Emily came back. The students who'd stood by me through the harassment became my most dedicated practitioners. I realized that real strength isn't about physical dominance. It's about patience, intelligence, and the courage to hold your ground while others exhaust themselves with aggression.